And then it can actually reach out into everything, because there's these frustrations, there's these misunderstandings, there's these kind of dissatisfactions, and it can reach on out. So the thing it actually is it's to do with sex and how we do sex. We have our own sexual personality, but is that our true sexual personality? Is that the sexual personality that we be underneath everything? Or is that the sexual personality that we are being in that moment? Because it holds patterns from our past, things that we learned, things that we tried and tested, or things that happened or involved us that we're just repeating and drawing from on repeat.
On Stories of Self, we go on journeys into the lives of ourselves and others. We see how stories connect, how they diverge, and how we can create our worlds and solve our problems. This is the real-life remix of storytelling, which is so often stranger than fiction. So come and sit around the fire, chill by the ocean, or get a coffee with me, as I delve into the stories of self that make, break, and remake us. Some stories are dramatic, some are serene, some will magically mirror you, and some will be delightfully different. I'm your host, Katie Reeve Arnold, and this is Stories of Self.
Well, hey ho, this is something that I didn't know, I wasn't sure whether I should talk about or not. But hey ho, here we go, because I've decided to, and yeah, let's see how we get on. So here on Stories of Self, we talk a bit about the patterning that occurs in our lives and how we repeat those patterns, how those patterns can be formed many, many years ago, even before we even know it's happening. And then we repeat those patterns and we don't even know that that's what we're doing. Those patterns become who we are. But they are who we are being in that moment. But is it who we be? Is it who we truly are underneath? Or is it just something we've taken on, something we've absorbed from others? And we replay it then on default. Well, the reason we replay it on default is because it saves energy. If it works once, repeat, okay? But it doesn't necessarily make it good for us. So one of the ways this can show up, and I am seeing this really impacting people through their lives as individuals and also as couples, and then it's kind of reaching out into the rest of everyone's life, because any impact that it has on you as an individual in peace in your life, and any impact that it has on the couple, and then it can actually reach out into everything, because there's these frustrations, there's these misunderstandings, there's these kind of dissatisfactions, and it can reach on out. So the thing it actually is it's to do with sex and how we do sex. We have our own sexual personality, but is that our true sexual personality? Is that the sexual personality that we be underneath everything? Or is that the sexual personality that we are being in that moment? Because it holds patterns from our past, things that we learned, things that we tried and tested, or things that happened or involved us that we're just repeating and drawing from on repeat without actually being focused on what it's doing in our lives and that process in our lives. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I find it super, super interesting. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with it here, because a few years ago, I would have said that this did not impact me at all. I would have said that I was being 100% true to myself, that I was, this was completely who I was, that I was liberated, that I was free, and that I was really, in myself and in the moment in that kind of that time in my life, when I was having sex, when I was in bed with somebody, and when I was alone. I would say that I was really myself, But actually, what I realized after the kind of spectacular general collapse of my life, I think actually I had to shore everything up to a point. I'd shored it all up, and I'd patched it all up to the point where, it was this rickety house. My entire life was this rickety house that I'd patched over and over and over again. And in this patching process, I wasn't letting myself really deal with the problem, which was in the foundations. So in my other podcast, in Soul Therapy, which you can find if you just Google Soul Therapy Help, or one word, we talk about this self-relationship house as the foundation for everything in our life. And it impacts everything, and everything is impacted by it. And so therefore, this self-relationship house, this way we treat ourselves, this way we interact with ourselves, is actually reflected then in every single thing we do. So whatever we're doing in our self-relationship house, it's coming back to us over and over again. We're dealing with this. We're getting fronted up to this many, many, many times a day. Our lives are filled with this kind of mirroring or this reflection of what we've created in our self-relationship house. And for me, I had some really rickety foundations. I had some really dodgy foundations, and it was all just needed that kind of knockdown. It was a knock job. My relationship house with myself was a complete knock job. And of course, I didn't want to see that. Of course, I fought against that. Of course, it wasn't even years, I spent decades fighting against this idea, okay? Because these things, I thought that was who I was. I didn't realize it wasn't who I was, or it was who I was being. Yeah. So it was these patterns coming out through me, out through my life. And one of the ways that I actually benefited from that complete knockdown of my self-relationship house and the rebuild was in finding a approach that was more true to me in regards to sex. And I did not see that one coming. I thought I was liberated already. I thought I was free already. I thought I was enjoying myself already. I thought I thought it was a great aspect of my life. But it turns out that I was repeating patterns that I had learned, and patterns that weren't true to me. I'd taken them on, and they'd worked. And in that working, they'd become safe. And they became this kind of go-to, this thing that I would repeat over and over, maybe not every time, but many times. But when I demolished the whole self-relationship house, when I started rebuilding, when I started asking myself these questions about what I wanted, what I was, who am I, who do I be underneath all of this? Not who am I being, not who have I been, but who do I be? And bringing that into who I'm being in a true sense so that I can actually relate the two. So who I be underneath can be who I'm being in my life. So when I started doing this, I realized that actually a lot of the things I thought I liked and I thought I wanted, they weren't me. And that really took me back to undercut everything. I was like, well, hang on. If these things I thought I was sure of, these things I thought I was sure I wanted and sure I liked, if that's not me, then what is me? And so I started kind of rebuilding from those foundations. I started questioning everything. And I was really, really compassionate with myself about that. I let myself question everything. It was okay to question everything. In fact, it was good. Because if I questioned something and it was for me, and it was truly me, the true underlying who I was, that who I be, if that was coming through in that, then great, then tick, And that could bring that into my life and, let go of the worry about it. But if it wasn't, well, this was a bit more confusing. Because sometimes when we learn things very young, or we have things repeated from our first experiences of something, then we can actually feel like that's something that we be and something that we want, when it's not. When it's a pattern that's been placed in us and it's become safe in us, and we've repeated it over and over. And so now it's kind of a habit. It's habit to think that we like it. It's habit to think that we want it. But one of the things that really, really helped me with this was that I noticed that the more I was true to myself, the happier everybody who interacted with me in life got. Even though I thought that me being true to myself was actually raising some problems for them. So it's not all about sex. A lot of it is, but hey, it's not all about it. So let's use some examples that are kind of more easy or more common. But, if I was due to meet someone for coffee and I really didn't feel like it, whereas before I would pushed myself to go, I reflected on this, and I think I talk in a different episode about ego versus soul. So I would question that concept of, am I ego tired or am I soul tired? So is this a true soul kind of feeling that I don't want to go, or is this an ego thing and I need to kind of get over it? And so the ego tends to be this louder voice and the soul tends to be this quieter voice. So I learned to listen to the two, and I learned to listen to the two by exercising that listening when it wasn't a question, when it didn't matter. And I talk about this a bit more in my soul therapy series with Kate Melendi. So you can Google soultherapyhelp@gmail.com. That's our email address. You can message us, but you can Google soul therapy help, all one word, and you can find our podcast there. And so we're going to be guiding people through finding this path. We're already guiding people through. We're going to be guiding more and more people through it. And we're really looking forward to that. So what I found was that when I followed this truth to me, it ended up better for the other people in my life as well. And so, like I said, whether it was going for coffee with somebody and I wasn't really feeling it, so I let them know, unfortunately, I'm not feeling that kind of thing right now. And oftentimes, what would come back would not be the worst case scenario I played in my head. It would not be the idea that I had completely ruined their day. It would actually be something like, oh, I'm really glad you said that because I wasn't sure I was feeling it either. Or, oh, I went out to my bike and I've got a flat tire and so actually I couldn't have made it anyway. Or, these things actually were in that way aligned. And we talk about alignment a lot more in soul therapy as well. So this was happening across my life and I was really starting to get this reinforcement. Hang on, the more I just be who I am and am being in that actively, the better this feels for me and for everyone else. And so after a significant time of healing, and I would definitely say that it's worth taking time for yourself. I took some significant time for myself. It wasn't necessarily a choice. I was kind of forced that way to take that time for myself by my situation. But I'm grateful for it. Sometimes the things that come along in our lives and we think they're being forced on us, they can actually be this real cauldron for change. They can really help us to actually look at things that maybe we've been avoiding. I'd been running away from these things for years. And so it helped me rather to look at them. And so I was alone for a really long time. But one of the things I realized was that when I connect with people in a kind of dating and sexual way, I want to be able to put myself first. Now, this doesn't mean being selfish. It's not about it's only me that matters. Of course it's not. We're all equals in life, right? But if I can trust me to put myself first in my frame of reference, be who I truly am, and being in that trueness of who I truly am, yeah, if I can do that and trust them, have a conversation with them and trust them to do the same, then that means that I'm not waiting for them to second guess who I truly am and what I truly want. And they're not waiting for me to second guess that. We're actually being honest and we're being in communication. And that honest communication actually makes everything so much more relaxed and so much easier, because rather than second guessing the other person, you are truly knowing yourself. And then you are bringing that truly knowing of yourself actively to that other person and openly connecting with them with it. And so in this way, I was able to kind of go through all of those things from my past and work out which ones were true to me, which ones were patterning that I had habitually continued. And it surprised me. It definitely, I think that one of the things that came up for me was the fact that some of the things that I thought I wanted and I thought I liked and I thought that that was me really wasn't. And it took some time to accept that and to be with that. But I'm really glad I did, because the more I did, the more I was self-honoring, the more I was really not abandoning myself in moving forwards in ways that weren't true to me. And so the more I was true to myself and the more I was being completely myself, and the more I wasn't self-abandoning and the more I wasn't habitually repeating things that weren't truly me, the better everything got. The freer I felt. And I suddenly realized that I wasn't free before. I wanted to be. And I was forcing the fact that I was through saying it. But it doesn't work, right? We can't just utter something in that way and make it so. So there's a word, I think it's in Arabic, abracadabra. So as I speak, so I am, right? It's where abracadabra comes from, that kind of like magic idea. So as abracadabra, as I speak, so I am, so I create. Yeah. So, but this is a two-way street. So it's not just about bringing into creation, like as you speak, you're making it happen. It's about being true to yourself, looking within yourself and making sure that you are being 100% true and loyal to the word you speak, that it's actually you, the actual trueness of you and who you be, that is being through your speaking, and that you're bringing into life who you truly are. So then, as you speak, so you create in line with who you truly are. Because otherwise, as you speak, so you create, if you're creating and speaking about something that's not true to you, well, I mean, you're going to create it, but it's not going to feel true to you because it's not. And so something's always going to feel a little bit off. It's always going to feel a little bit frustrating, a little bit like the shoe doesn't fit. Yeah. So if we want to be comfortable in what we're creating, not too much comfort, because discomfort can help us, hey? So discomfort can help to push us towards growth. But at the same time, if we are happy to jump before we become uncomfortable, if we don't wait for discomfort in order to grow, then we're just going to keep growing from a place of joy. We're never going to have to reach that discomfort. So we just keep moving in happiness, comfort, and joy, because we're happy to keep moving. We're not sitting in our comfort. We're not staying there. We're not becoming stagnant. Discomfort comes along in order to kickstart us out of stagnation. But if we don't stagnate, if we keep changing through our comfort and moving through our comfort zone into areas where we're not so comfortable, then actually we never need to reach that point of so much pain and struggle. Yeah. So this is a really beautiful thing. And so I really advocate for this in relationships, in relation to yourself. So, whether this is you alone in your room or whether this is you in connection with your partner, I really advocate for this trueness to yourself, this real reflection on what is it that I want. And it was very confusing for me to question my wants, felt weird. It felt kind of unnatural. It felt like I was a kind of earthquake shaking my own foundations. But if it's stable, if it's true, then it won't be able to be shook. If you can shake it, is it truly you? Have a question of it. Think about it. Bring it into your life, because it can't get worse. It can only get better. By being more true to yourself, our lives and our connections with others can only get more true in themselves, can only get better.
We are all telling our stories, and we are all telling ourselves stories about it all. Are you brave enough to walk with me into hearing, considering, and understanding the stories we tell? Join me next time, where we'll be considering more stories and illusions and stepping into creating the freedom we desire. Every moment, we are who we are choosing to be. You choose. Choose you, because your story matters.